Good evening and happy Thursday from Metro Manila, the Philippines, Southeastern Asia local time. The defeated US President Donald Trump has released a 46-minute video rant against the recent US presidential elections that actually, as far as the official voting day was concerned, took place exactly 1 month ago, and which he lost by clear margins in both the popular vote, 51% to 47%. So over 81 million people voted for his Democratic challenger, former Vice President Joe Biden, while over 74 million people voted for him, so a margin of about 7 million votes. And then in the Electoral College, Biden is projected to win 306 electors compared to Trump's 232 electors. The 538 presidential electors will assemble in the respective state capitals and the U.S. capital, Washington, D.C., on December the 14th, which should put an end to these legal challenges. It's great that USA Today, which has provided this article that I'm going to quote, although selectively, still has fact-checking journalists. So not all of the mass media, contrary to what Trump claims, including his critics, are part of the fake news media, but they actually point out the fact that he's fond of lying. Or maybe lying is so habitual to him that he drops these little so-called white lies every now and then without even being fully conscious of them, let alone apologetic for them. So, what do the facts state contrary to his claims? Published on December the 2nd, 2020, US time, or at least Eastern time, on the USA Today website. Though the video had the look of an official address or speech shot in the diplomatic room of the White House with a fireplace and a US flag in the background, Trump's words had the feel of a series of tweets strung together intended to lash out at perceived enemies, the media, election officials, and even members of his own administration, which of course shows how desperate he has become. Trump's video was posted a day after U.S. Attorney General or Federal Justice Minister William Barr disputed the president's claims by declaring that the U.S. Justice Department had found no evidence of fraud at the level that would overturn the results of the election. In other words, Attorney General Barr indirectly admitted that Donald Trump had lost the election and therefore Joe Biden is scheduled to succeed him in January 2020. The key battleground states of Pennsylvania, Michigan, Nevada, Wisconsin, Arizona, and Georgia, all of which Biden won by narrow margins and which guaranteed his victory in the Electoral College, have already certified Biden as the winner. Georgia is conducting a second recount, but the Republican Secretary of State there indicated on Wednesday that it had so far not found results that deviate significantly from the original count. In other words, that even the second recount will prove Biden as the winner, albeit by a very slim margin. Little in Trump's remarks was new, and many of the same arguments have been attempted by his legal team in state and federal courts without success. In other words, he sounded again like a broken record. Trump has held out hope that the U.S. Supreme Court, 3 of whose 9 current justices he has appointed, will hear at least one of the cases. But even if the court takes up the most likely candidate a case in the U.S. Court of Appeals in Pennsylvania, it would not affect the presidential election's outcome. Here is a look at some of the claims Trump made in the video and their fact checks and refutations. Claim: Trump repeated his false allegation that a mysterious massive dump of votes cost him Wisconsin and gave the victory to Biden, who won the state by around 20,000 votes. Facts: Trump has complained repeatedly that he was initially ahead of Biden in key battleground states such as Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, and Michigan, only to see his lead disappear after absentee ballots were dumped overnight. Biden jumped ahead as more absentee ballots were counted and reported, but a surge of Democratic votes was long expected. It was not a mysterious dump of votes, and there's a basic reason between the differences in those key battleground states, um, or in the differences between those key battleground states' initial projections of votes, which included only the votes or a percentage of votes cast on November the 3rd, 2020, and then their eventual, uh, albeit still technically unofficial, vote counts, which are unlikely to change significantly enough to help Donald Trump win. Very unlikely. Because many more supporters of Joe Biden voted already due to their concerns of the uh, still spreading COVID-19 pandemic in the United States by absentee and mail in ballots, while clearly more of Trump's supporters, because he had urged them to do so, already boasted weeks before the election that the only way in which he could lose would be cheating. Many more of Trump's voters voted on the actual election day. So this is a commonsensical fact. Nothing mysterious or conspiratorial or fraudulent about it. More, Wisconsin did not find 100,000 ballots around 4 a.m. the morning after the election. For the past year, election experts warned it would take days or even weeks to have final election results because of the unprecedented volume of mail-in absentee ballots during the pandemic. But this was nothing mysterious because those absentee ballots skewed heavily for Biden after Trump's year-long assault on mail-in voting turned off his vote. And Wisconsin could not refused. Milwaukee and other towns and cities together instead of in ripples. Other communities counted absentee ballots at polling places and reported them along with their in-person vote totals. As a result, from 3:26 to 3:44 a.m. in the Associated Press election reporting stream, Wisconsin's vote for Biden jumped by 149,520 votes, and Trump's vote jumped by 31,803 votes. In other words, even his vote experienced a jump, albeit less than one quarter of the jump experienced by Joe Biden's vote, pushing Biden to the lead. Absentee ballots that were reported last favored Biden by an even wider margin because Democrats were significantly more likely to vote by mail than Republicans. Claim: Trump said that his campaign found hundreds of thousands of discrepancies or fraudulent votes, in part because they were not allowed to be seen by Republican poll watchers because the poll watchers were locked out of the building. Facts: the claim is untrue. Poll watchers from the Trump campaign, as well as both the Republican and Democratic parties, were allowed to observe vote processing. The claim was also contradicted in the president's campaign lead challenges in Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Nevada. The latter two have since been dismissed. In Michigan, a judge denied the Trump campaign's lawsuit to stop vote counting until the campaign's representatives could get what it called meaningful access to observe the process. A judge in Nevada rejected the case after the campaign failed to show how election officials interfered with poll observers, while a Trump campaign attorney admitted in court that the campaign had a non-zero number of poll watchers in Philadelphia, where it was challenging the results. A viral video emerged on November the 3rd, 2020, showing observers from both the Republican and Democratic parties who were locked out because the limit on election challengers had already been exceeded. The Detroit Free Press reported that at one point roughly 400 challengers were inside the room where the vote processing was underway. Election officials then limited the number of people allowed inside over concerns about the spread of COVID-19. building security and increasing tensions, but said challengers from both parties were allowed to observe. Claim: Trump said the Democratic Party mailed tens of millions of ballots to unknown recipients with virtually no safeguards in place. Facts: Trump and the National Republican Party launched an all out assault on mail in voting that began long after automatically sent a ballot to each registered voter, with the vast majority of states which sent a ballot only if requested by the voter. In those cases, state officials, not the Democratic Party, check the validity of the absentee ballots in the same general manner they have always done. 9 states and the District of Columbia, meaning Washington, the US capital, said they would use the universal system of sending ballots to all voters. Of those 9 states, only one, Nevada, was considered remotely competitive. Regardless of the system, a person must be registered to vote to receive rolls, which do exist. But state election officials verified the completed ballots once they had been mailed back in. States have different ways to confirm the for in-person voting. But for mail ballots, the principal method by verifying information on the mail ballot itself, according to the Brennan Center, a nonpartisan law and policy institute. Claim: Trump reiterated a claim that Dominion Voting Systems, a company that supplies election equipment to more than 24 states, deleted votes for Trump or switched them to votes for Biden. Facts: The Department of Homeland Security's Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, which oversees U.S. election security, issued a joint statement that found no evidence that any voting system deleted or lost votes, changed votes, or was in any way compromised. The statement added that all states with close results have paper records of each vote that allow for recount if necessary. On its own fact check, the Department of Homeland Security Cybersecurity Division said every state has safeguards in place to ensure bad actors cannot change the election outcome without detection. Those measures include protection against malicious software and regularly checking that tabulation systems are functioning without any irregularities or glitches. The tabulation systems also undergo rigorous testing and certification requirements before the election. Trump and his supporters have pushed a series of false claims about Dominion, including that the company has ties to Venezuela, a left-wing authoritarian dictatorship, by the way, and makes political donations to the Democratic Party. The company has categorically denied these claims. The Denver-based nonpartisan company has said it made a one-time philanthropic commitment at a Clinton Global Initiative meeting in 2014, but the nonprofit has no involvement in Dominion's operations, the Associated Press reported. Claim: Trump has repeatedly claimed that the recounts taking place in Georgia mean nothing because election officials don't check signatures. Facts: State officials in Georgia are required to check signatures when the ballots are first received, and Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger, who has identified himself as a Trump supporter, by the way, said that the process occurred. When a voter requested a ballot by mail, the person required to sign the application, the state officials have said. The person was required, yeah. So when a voter requested a vote by mail, the person was required to sign the application, Georgia state officials have said. Election officials compared the signature on the request to the signature in voter registration files before the ballot was sent to the voter, Raffensperger has said. When these ballots were returned, the required signature on the outer envelope was compared to the signatures in the voter registration system. Georgia officials certified Biden's victory after an initial state-ordered hand recount affirmed he won the state by 12,220 at 284 votes. So in the recount, his vote slim victory margin was only reduced by about 2,000 votes, hardly an evidence of any massive irregularities or vote fraud. The Trump campaign requested a second recount, which is expected to be released on Thursday US time. Contributing John Fritz, Courtney Subramanian, Joey Garrison, David Jackson, Ella Lee, Associated Press. So once again, these are the facts. Hopefully, Trump and his supporters will come into line